Let's talk about how to source and hire talent for your agency. There's 4 steps to hiring. Identify when it's time to hire, source the right candidates, qualify your candidates through interviews, and onboard new hires. So let's go through each step in more detail. Before you begin looking for candidates and qualifying those candidates, you first need to identify when it's time to hire. It's incredibly difficult to identify the perfect moment, but there's 2 leading indicators that suggest when it's time to start growing your agency's team. First, utilization rate, and second, specialty services. Let's talk about the first indicator, utilization rate. Do you have a strong pipeline of new client prospects, but limited employee capacity to take on all that new work? For example, if you have 6 prospects lined up, all with a 50 to 90% chance of closing, does your team have the capacity and bandwidth to deliver on these new retainers? If you're tracking your employees' time, then you should have a good grasp on overall utilization rates for future capacity planning. As a reminder, utilization rate is the percentage of time your team dedicates to client-facing work, which will help you calculate the percentage of time that can be considered billable to your clients. Peak utilization for an employee's client-facing hours is about 75%, which is 120 hours per month if you consider a 40-hour work week. The remaining 25%, or 40 hours per month, is usually dedicated to emails, documentation and administrative work, and any internal projects not necessarily aligned to an account. Let's run through a hypothetical. Let's say for your agency, an average retainer is 20 hours of work per month and per client, for an average price of $2,000 per month. Combine that with a 75% peak utilization rate for an employee. If you have 120 hours a month that the agency considers billable, that's 6 client accounts, each at 20 hours a month. That still gives each team member 40 hours of time for administrative tasks, and then they're managing a book of business of $12,000 per month. If this remains balanced and consistent, you've come out well ahead in hiring account managers to oversee the accounts. So if your agency has 12 clients, you'll need 2 employees to each manage 6 accounts, which would then keep them at the appropriate capacity. Maybe as you sign the next 1 or 2 accounts, the team's bandwidth tightens. But what if all 6 of those prospects close as new business? Well, it's time to grow the team. The second indicator would be to review your specialty services. For example, do you offer pay-per-click advertising or Facebook advertising? If you do, who builds, manages, and optimizes those campaigns? The same people that manage all the other services? Or do you have an employee who specializes in those services? Making the hiring decision in this case can come down to both a service that's considered a strength and a service that's considered a weakness for the agency. For example, if you've been selling a ton of Facebook advertising, how many hours per employee is dedicated to just Facebook ad management? Again, let's say your team has 120 hours a month of billable availability, or room for 6 accounts each at 20 hours a month. But Facebook advertising, growing in popularity, continues to require more and more time to manage. All of a sudden, 4 hours a week per client is spent optimizing Facebook ads. So 16 hours per month for each client quickly adds up to 96 hours a month just on Facebook ads. So your next hire could be a Facebook advertising and social media specialist. Make them responsible for Facebook advertising across your client base and give those hours back to your generalists. Your team's utilization would then restabilize, and your generalists could now have capacity back for new customers. On the other side, let's say you struggle at paid advertisements or haven't been able to even sell it to your prospects because your team doesn't have the experience or track record in delivering. A hiring decision may be made here to reinforce and strengthen your agency's full menu of services. Now you may wonder how to best anticipate such needs. How can you anticipate these billable hours and keep the profit margin on an even keel? For agencies with the most effective hiring process, forecast their hiring needs months in advance. With a retainer business, you should be able to both forecast revenue in your lead pipeline as well as the recurring revenue of your current customer base. With your team's utilization rate and capacity in hand, forecast who you need to hire and for what. One agency, PR 2020, is always 3 months ahead in their hiring forecast. This prevents both their account managers from being overworked and keeps them paying for headcount that will bring in a steady ROI for the agency. Now, when you've decided the moment is right, it's time for step 2, to source the right candidates. To do this, you must have impactful job descriptions. You should be able to properly communicate who your agency is, what's your vision for the future, and who's the right employee for your current offering. By properly sharing your vision for both your agency and for your candidate, you're beginning the qualification process right out of the gate. It's telling job searchers who don't align with your mission they need not apply. When crafting the perfect job description, here's a few tips to improve the way you communicate open roles and responsibilities at your agency and their impact. First, set crystal clear expectations. One of the top reasons why unqualified candidates continue to apply for agency openings is because they don't know for certain what will be asked of them. Within your job description, use the right language to remove any confusion around exactly what will be asked of a person in this role. For example, key phrases to lean on would be, you have a track record of, you will be responsible for, and you will be held accountable for. Being upfront about track records sets strong expectations for the interview process. Candidates will now be prepared to discuss their history in delivering the tasks required. By communicating what they'll be responsible for and accountable for, confident candidates will begin appearing as applicants. For example, you could write the following. You have a track record of innovation and marketing experimentation, with clear examples of ways you've successfully driven demand that were different from the status quo. Second, communicate both hard skill and soft skill requirements. Poor performing job descriptions tend to lean only on the literal tasks being asked of a new hire. Yes, it's important to be clear about what someone will be expected to do in a new role, but it's equally as important to list the soft skills needed for a new hire to succeed. And if you're unsure about soft skills, consider the personal attributes of your highest performing talent. What sort of social skills, character traits, and personal attributes translate into success for your agency? Maybe the more important question to ask is, what skills are needed to elevate your agency? Make sure your job descriptions contain items for both sets of skills. Your agency should be looking for a person that checks off the right boxes for experience around designing, building, reporting, analyzing, and other action-oriented responsibilities. You should also be listing the importance of a creative, data-driven, entrepreneurial, or communicative candidate. An example here could be, if you're an innovative, analytical marketer who is excited to bring new ideas to the table and implement change, this role is for you. Lastly, be ambitious about the end result. As HubSpot CEO Brian Allegan says, hire for culture add, not culture fit. Agencies shouldn't just be setting the right expectations and communicating the right skills for the role as it exists right now. Wrap up your job posting with a description of where you want the role to go and what this candidate can grow into. You may be hiring for an account manager to help with a group of new accounts, but what can they improve organizationally? Could this new hire potentially help improve your entire client onboarding process? By including ambition in your job description, you're attracting ambitious talent. They'll look beyond the roles and responsibilities of the opening and gravitate towards what it could become. An example of this could read as follows. You will be in charge of attracting site traffic, converting that traffic into new leads for a business, and nurturing those leads to close into customers for our clients. The ideal candidate will also help refine our reporting process to present more impactful reporting to clients. By using these tips, you'll be setting your agency's recruiting efforts up for success. Your agency will be setting crystal clear expectations up front with any interested parties and qualifying the talent before their name even gets to your team. In the long run, high-quality job descriptions will help ensure each new hire for your agency improves upon the status quo and delivers top-notch services for your clients. When the right candidate comes along, and they will, It's now time to further qualify them and make sure they are the right fit for your agency. This will be done through your agency's interview process. What does your interview process look like today? Most likely, it will be a round robin of meetings with you, team managers, and maybe some team members. Maybe you have questions prepared, but maybe you don't. Maybe you assigned out particular questions for each person, but maybe you didn't. And then maybe there's a sheet for each interviewer to fill out, but again, maybe there isn't. And then you're supposed to qualify the candidate and determine if she or he will be a fit for the open role. Through 2 or 3 hours of questioning, you're supposed to decide whether or not this person is worth the investment. That can be a tough spot to be in. Interviewing and hiring talent can be one of the most difficult aspects of scaling an agency. But to help improve your process, consider the following tips. First, which is a callback to those character traits you may have used to write your job description, make sure you're asking questions to uncover those character traits. If you know exactly what traits to look for and what characteristics lead to success at your agency, you can weave those into your interview questions. For example, maybe you prioritize coachability. Ask a candidate what they'd do if they found out they were struggling to meet objectives in the first 90 days. Or maybe you prioritize humility. Review an achievement of theirs and ask who they owe the success to. Once you identify those traits that you consider vital, focus less on tactical experience and build a line of questioning to help uncover those traits and the candidate's character makeup. A second way to upgrade your interview process is to include activities, tasks the candidate must do that correlate directly to the role in which they're striving for. By incorporating activities, you're able to polish up your process beyond Q&A, improve the interviewee's experience, and increase your visibility into your candidate's ability to perform a relevant task. Consider using the following set of activities in your process to help test your candidate's analytical skills, creativity, and problem-solving abilities as it relates to the opening at your agency. For any job opening that would be required to create content, have candidates provide a writing sample. This should be considered a must for any roles that require copywriting or content curation, like website copywriters, blog writers, technical writers, public relations, or even marketing generalists. You can get writing samples through a number of different means. For one, you can just request a blog sample or a writing sample on the application itself. This lets the candidate provide you with what they consider their strongest work. Another approach would be to provide a writing prompt for the candidate to complete. Maybe it's a topic that aligns with your agency's service offerings or a hypothetical customer that fits your primary buyer persona. To take it one step further, if there's an SEO component to the role, have your candidate also provide the keywords or topics they'd be optimizing around. Have them mark up the writing sample with what they'd mark as the H1, how they'd write the title tag, what they'd include as a meta description, or what other blog titles they'd write on the topic. You could also have candidates problem solve through a case study. Your team is likely viewed as problem solvers, which is inherently aligned with agency life. Oftentimes, clients require strategies and tactics that resolve a root problem they're facing, whether it's website traffic, lead generation, closing more deals, or increasing revenue. To ensure your candidate has the right frame of mind and problem-solving ability, present them with a case study that introduces a standard challenge your customers face. An example may be a huge contact list, and the customer doesn't know where to start. Or maybe a customer wants to see a 2x increase in lead generation from their website. The candidate's answer doesn't always have to be perfect, but it'll be important to review their approach, their ability to critically think through the situation, and their ability to solve for the customer's needs.